I cannot speak from memory, so that's why I have a lot of pieces of papers here. Now you see, I'm a man who is highly unsettled. I don't know which title to give. Yesterday or the day before yesterday, I settled on this title. That is why you got this on the invitation. Now, while writing this slide, I thought that I can slightly manipulate my title. I hope, with your permission, now it has become this. What was here a subtitle, Lakan on Hamlet, has become now here the title. Slight changed. People often write their papers like this way, reading Hamlet with Lakan. I just reversed it, or inversed. Reading Lakan with Hamlet. I assume that most of you have read a little bit about Hamlet, but less about Lakan. So I thought that is justified. Reading Lakan with Hamlet, because we approach the unknown with the help of the known, or relatively better known. এখানে সামনে আরো চেয়ার আছে, কয়েকজন এদিকে এসে বসেন। Please fill in the blanks in the top. Yeah, in front row. আপনার কিছু ব্যাগগুলো স্যার পাশে রেখে আরো দু একজনকে বসার আয়োজন করেন। হ্যাঁ, বসেন। So anyway, then I also found a subtitle here, which comes from here. Man's desire is the desire of the other. Take your seat. We have to yet build up the habit. I want to finish it at 4. That's why it is necessary that we begin at 2:40. Since we are losing time at the beginning, probably it might get a bit delayed. I don't want to delay your time. I would like to present my whatever I have to say in the form of bullets, in the form of thesis, and then we'll have some time for question and answer. So here, desire lost and found, you can see it resounds. I first wrote desire lost and desire regained, but that sounds too much Miltonic, so I kind of found that there is a lost and found office here. Let us see, what is this tragedy about? Let me begin with Laurence Olivier. Laurence Olivier on Hamlet has a subtitle. That means in spite of the whole movie, he felt tempted to say that this is a tragedy of the man who could not decide, who could not settle his mind, who could not decide what to do. So a man who cannot make up his mind, it is his tragedy, according to him. But we'll see that the tragedy is not quite that. That I cannot decide what to do, according to Lacanian psychoanalysis, would be taken not as a cause, but as a symptom. It is a fact that Hamlet was a man who decided to take revenge of his father's death because the ghost, his father's ghost, told him, take revenge. So he knew it. But in spite of the fact that he got the tidings, the message from his father's ghost, he could not act. His act was to kill his uncle. But why he could not? That's why Laurence Olivier's film scholar said Hamlet is a man who could not make up his mind. But we will see that the exact opposite is the truth according to Jacques Lacan. How is it possible? Let I say, according to Lacan, the problem is that not he could not act. The problem is that he did not know why to act. The reason we act is called our desire. I do not want to obfuscate things too much. What is desire? You have to ask this question. Desire is that starting point from which actions spring up. So if you have lost your desire, how would you act? But now finally you all know that he was able eventually to take revenge at the end of the play, at the end of the 5th act. So therefore probably he found it back. So how did he lose his desire and how did he find it? That is the frame of my presentation. So let's begin with some difficulty. Jacques Lacan talks about 3 kinds of desire. I wrote in the reverse fashion, real, imaginary, symbolic and imaginary. You can read the other way around also. Now let's go a bit to there. Imaginary, symbolic and real. We'll see. Now this is a statement from Lacan's seminar. This is a seminar Lacan gave in 1959, 1 year after I was born. So, and he gave 7 lectures on Hamlet, beginning with his lecture number 3 up it's called seminar number 6. So this is published much later in 1981. The lecture was given in 1959, but 22 years later it was printed in a journal called, this is a strange name with a question mark, it's called Ornica. This is the French journal. Unfortunately, this has not yet been translated into English so far, as I know. So this is some rough translation I borrowed from some friend. Out of that lecture, the first day's lecture is printed here in Ornica volume 24, year 1981, page 24. Easy for you to remember, 24. But what does Lakan say here, let us say? He says, what is this tragedy of Hamlet about? He says, it's the tragedy of desire. A man who lost his desire, therefore he could not act. So how did he lose it? What kind of desire did he lose? Of these three, let's see. The fundamental structure of the eternal saga, which is there since the origin of time, was modified by Shakespeare in the way that brought to light how man is not simply possessed by desire, but has to find it at his cost and with greatest pain. We all know that we are possessed by desire. We desire. I miss you. That means I desire you. If you are in me, why I would miss you? You are not in me, therefore I desire you. Sometimes we do not need. We say, Mom, I'm hungry. So I need food. Mom, just sit by me. I need you. I don't eat her up. I just want her company. So these are two different kinds of desire. One fulfills your need. Sometimes you think this will fulfill your need. When it comes, you still feel more hungry. That is another kind of need. So we'll talk about those kind of things, real, imaginary and symbolic. But when Raka said, at his cost and with greatest pain, that refers to the real. We'll see what kind of desire Lakan is talking about. So, but let us first remember these three theoretical categories. This is the hook on which I'm hanging my presentation. Three kinds of desire, real, imaginary and symbolic, or symbolic, imaginary. We'll see, though let's proceed a bit. Traditionally, there are two kinds of explanations about Hamlet's incapacity to act. One is presented by men, these are called liberal people, and this is the most popular one in all kinds of books and films. I mention one great man's name, the German poet Goethe. But you can come up to Abdullah Abu Said at Bishwa Sahitya Kendra, where if not I, but Shanwas Kubir, my friend, used to attend. At least he advertises this. And they, great minds, you know, my friends, think alike. So Goethe and Abdullah Abu Said think alike. Most of our departments of English and humanities also used to think this way, perhaps. People who say that I don't understand Lakan still think this way. So why he cannot act? According to Goethe, because he was a modern intellectual. Who is an intellectual? One who reads too much? And you see, Hamlet is reading a lot of books. He was age 30 and he was in Wittenberg. Wittenberg is a city in Germany at that time. Danish people used to study there. It is the place where Martin Luther started to preach his Protestantism. So a man who is at age 30 is away from home when his father is murdered in the garden while sleeping and everything happens. You know this. So that man can be called an intellectual. He was an overripe man, not yet ready to take up the action of the world. Similar things happen in Shakespeare's Tempest. Mr. Prospero, he was a book reader, a magician. He left affairs in the hands of his brother. So story of betrayals are very common in Renaissance Europe. So let's go there. Goethe says, emphasizes the antinomy of thought and action. He thinks that thought and action are opposite. Like Center for Advanced Theory should have been called Center for Advanced Action. Because some people think that what use is theory? So Hamlet, unfortunately, was a theorist. Because he was a theorist, he could not act. Why don't you use any of these chairs? Take all three of them. I will not perhaps be using any one of them. No, I will need one. If need be, I will sit on the table. On the desk. So here is Goethe's explanation why Hamlet cannot act. Simple explanation is that Hamlet is an intellectual. I put this word, rather modern intellectual. What is a modern intellectual? He only thinks, he does not participate. Even in the liberation war, he goes around the country in a lungi. Yeah, he cannot join either the Rajakars or the Mukti Yoddhas. It happens frequently to intellectuals. So it is Goethe's reading emphasizes the antinomy of thought and action. The hero is a modern intellectual, and this attitude of knowledge and reflection in Hamlet makes the currents of his enterprises turn awry and lose the name of action. This is a quotation from his famous soliloquy, to be or not to be, that is the question. Hamlet himself says, I am puzzled. So how can you dispute, according to Goethe, up to our friend Abdullah Abu Said? Everybody thinks that Hamlet is an intellectual, therefore he cannot act. So there, yes sir.
Would you like to put some focus on your word modern as well?
I mean, a modern intellectual means after, modernity is a word that we can use at least after the 15th century, in a loose liberal way. I say, he is an intellectual. Let us not dispute about the term. So what happens after that? Another explanation. This is the Freudian explanation, or rather early psychoanalytic explanation. Actually, Freud says this in a footnote in his book, Interpreting Dreams, and later on taken up by his disciple and biographer, Ernest Jones, and many other. What is known as American psychoanalysis or ego psychology, they all follow this explanation. They think this is the popular explanation under which Laurence Olivier made his film. And they are saying that, oh, Hamlet looks at his mother in the eyes of desire. That means Hamlet's desire is desire for his mother. This is the popular so-called psychoanalytic or Freudian explanation. Lacan begs to disagree very strongly, and that gives him his, what you call, his point of departure. This is also my burden here today. In Freudian reading, or Freud's reading, with this, and mostly argued not by Freud himself, but by his disciples. Remember, those of you who were in the first seminar, I said some people call New Freudians. The New Freudians argued this. Last time I gave a presentation, on the unconscious, where I said unconscious is like a language. Actually, I said one thing too many. If you say unconscious is a structure, it is enough. Or unconscious is a language, that is also enough. But I said both of them. Unconscious is structured like a language. How it is structured, we will see this. The pattern of desire, a man's desire is the desire of the other, is the name of a structure. The question about desire is not whether you have desire. The question is that whether you possess desire or desire possesses you. You say desire possesses you, where is this coming from? What is the exact place of the origin of that desire? In psychoanalytic parlance, you will bear with me for a while, I will say, it comes from the place of the other. Where is the place of the other? The first place we can identify empirically is the mother. That's why it is written this way, on mother. So let's see how mother's desire becomes Hamlet's desire and why it results in his inaction. This is the Lacanian explanation. Before we go into that, let us say what explanation we are trying to refute. The first one is the Goethean or the liberal one. This is rather a bit radical, rather scandalous. It says this: in killing Hamlet's father and marrying his mother, Claudius, his uncle, realizes Hamlet's own unconscious desire. This is the early Freudian explanation, so-called. The child's desire for his mother, or the Oedipal desire to eliminate the one who seems to stand in the way of his desire. Remember, the child, when 1 year, 1.5 year old, often thinks of the father as an enemy, as opposed to the him himself, a competitor, a rival. So, if Hamlet, during his childhood, thought of eliminating his father, it has been now sublimated by saying that I am my father's son, but the animosity remains, according to this Freudian explanation. So if Claudius has killed his father, so Hamlet might say that I am Claudius. Faced with Claudius's actions, Hamlet finds himself in the position of an accomplice. He did what I wanted to do anyway. This is we are talking about unconscious desire. So why should I be unhappy about this? There is reason. And therefore cannot strike against the usurper without simultaneously striking at himself. This is the so-called Freudian explanation that Lacan is at pains to refute. Let us see how. Many people are unhappy about it, but nevertheless people accept it in the Freudian school. So let us see the question of desire. This is the fundamental question. This seminar that Lacan was giving, by the way, let me add a footnote. Lacan gave seminars for 28 years. 1 year he was prohibited. So there are altogether 27 years of lectures from 1953, beginning in November 18 to be precise. And he ended this in 1980. This is the seminar of 1958-59, sixth seminar. It was called Desire and Interpretation of Desire. Lo deji keso, this interpretation, the question of desire. If we accept the Oedipal perspective, Lakan is arguing this way. Let us say Oedipal perspective means the early Freudian one. If we accept it, he finds there is an inner contradiction. What is this? He says Hamlet is driven by two tendencies. If the Freudian assumption of Oedipal perspective is right, then there are two tendencies. One, commanded by the authority of his father, and the other that corresponds to his will to defend his mother, which means to keep her for himself. Both these tendencies should lead him in the same direction, to kill Claudius. Why? The father's ghost. You know, the play opens up at midnight when guards were changing. A ghost has appeared. Then they talk to Horatio, and Horatio talked to our friend, hero, Hamlet, and he one day comes and he does see the ghost, and ghost talks to him. If he has not seen it, he has heard him clearly. There is an unmistakable injunction. Father said, do this. So then, this is the question. First is, one commanded by the authority of his father. Father said, take revenge, kill Claudius. Number two. Then, people say that he desires his mother, so why should he allow Claudius to get possession of his mother? He should rescue her from him. So both of them unmistakably point out to the fact that he can kill. But what we see as symptom, he cannot kill. He delays, he dilters. So the question is, why he delays, why he procrastinates? This is the famous question. Now let us go. No, so this is the famous thing here, just to help your memory. He begins this way. To be or not to be, that is the question. But nobody has ever asked, to be or not to be what? Emon dine tare bola jay, emoni khono gor borishay. Emon dine tare ki bola jay? The poet never articulates it. Similar here, to be or not to be what? And you will see Lakan will interpolate by saying that he cites Homer. And from there he says, nobody has, I'm a bit surprised that nobody has so far asked that what does he want? To be or not to be what? Lakan says, to be or not to be is already indicated by the name Ophelia. Ophelia comes from the name Ophelas. That's from Greek. So that's why he says Ophelia's name indicates, one L is dropped down, but it is a coagulation of two words. Ophelas becomes Ophelia. Lakan says so much, saying that I wonder why no one has ever suggested this. It is clearly there is. Phelas means something that swells, something that stands up, and it is the prime object of desire. So the question is, to be or not to be the object of desire, or to be subject? That is the question. So to be or not to be my object of my mother's desire. Should I be the Phelas or should I not be? This is Lacanian interpolation. In third lecture, in the actually fifth lecture, Lacan talks about this. That one is translated into English, by the way. Fifth, sixth and seventh seminars are translated. The first four are yet to be. To be or not to be, that is the question. This is the famous soliloquy around third act. Whether it is nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, etc. It goes on. Lines in my edition, Act 3, Scene 1, line 56, fast forward, onwards. You will find more lines. Oh, and a little bit later in the same para, after the 83 lines. Does conscience does make cowards of us all. This has been grieved by Goethe and other poets, saying that they say he is a man, a modern intellectual. He is grieved by his conscience. He is not sure whether to kill or not to kill. But what conscience is this? Whether to follow the injunctions of the father or to be driven by the mother's desire. If they two move in two different directions, you are a resultant in the middle, which is inaction. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all. And thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied over the pale cast of thought, and the enterprises of great pitch and moment with disregard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. This is what I kind of quoted. because of lack of time, I made already 30 handouts. I cannot cover it in 1 hour, so I left many quotations. I hope you will bear with this.